What is up, IDP Army, Fantasy Football Fanatics? It's your man Jordan Reigns at 50 Shades of Drunk. I am here with my man Billy Manziel, and we are down doing the deep work down here in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl, the Reese's Senior Bowl. Haven't had any Reese's yet. We'll have to talk to him about that. But day one of practice in the books was an awesome time. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not done that already. We're putting out shorts, follow us on TikTok, all that good stuff. But we're here to talk to you guys and gals about what we saw and how it's going to affect the NFL draft and how it's going to affect our dynasty teams and fantasy football. And as always, we are the IDP Army, so we're going to talk about all fantasy football, not just the offensive players, although we did see some big games today or some big plays today, but we're going to talk about defensive players a little bit too. So, Billy, what's up, man? How you doing, brother?
Doing well, doing well. Got a little sun today. It was very warm down here. I feel for all of the people back in Missouri where it's ice cold and sleeting and stuff because we're in South and it is hot down here. It was great weather day today, and the football was good too.
Yes, sir. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up our notes. Billy's been kind enough to put some notes together for us. We took notes all day. We took lots of videos. We're just going to talk to you guys and gals about what we saw day one. We're going to pull them up here now onto the screen so that you can view them with us. But let's go ahead and start with the national team practice. The number one standout player to me was this running back here, the guy behind Bijan. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you saw from the running backs and then the quarterbacks. You have the notes here. You're muted. I gotcha.
Just to start out, Roschon Johnson was amazing. I mean, he looked like the most ready back that was in this entire practice today. Actually, I would say out of both teams. I mean, I was kind of hoping a little bit more from Tajay Sharp. We'll get to him in a second, an American team. But as far as the national team goes, Roschon Johnson is amazing. I mean, he was behind Bijan, so we didn't really get to see him a whole lot. But I think it was a huge mistake. Like, we're all making a huge mistake discounting him just because he was behind Bijan. I mean, a lot of people have said the murmurs of going around the crowd is that where they get drafted maybe a little bit closer than people realize. I think a lot of people thought Bijan will go in the first and then Roschon will go much later than that. And I think that it might be a first round, second round situation by the time this week's up. It's kind of a crazy to watch this happen in real time.
Yeah, I mean, he did look like the most explosive player on the field, in my opinion, today on offense, especially for the running backs. He looked like the prototypical running back to me. I don't come from into this knowing a lot about college football. So, but I do watch the NFL, and he looked like the closest thing to an NFL running back I saw today. So I'm excited to see how he progresses the rest of the week. We didn't watch the running back super duper closely necessarily today, but I am excited to watch him in drills later this week when they do go up against the linebackers and against the cornerbacks and all that. But you also had some comments here about the quarterbacks. Now, we know that this is not a very strong quarterback class in general. The players that came down to the Senior Bowl obviously are generally, 4-year players, seniors. Good players or great players sometimes will come out early. I brought up this point to you that, this isn't the best quarterback class, and the guys that come to the Senior Bowl aren't the best guys. But that's kind of always the situation. The guys who are here are never supposedly the best. But, Justin Herbert was here. Jalen Hurts, who's about to play in the Super Bowl, was here. Josh Allen was here at the Senior Bowl. These are guys that weren't the number one, number two, number three overall picks. Some of them weren't even first, second round picks. Jalen Hurts, I guess they said Nagy made a point today that he thought before Hurts came to the Senior Bowl, he was a third round pick. And he ended up moving his needle up that much. And I do remember I was here for that Senior Bowl. Jalen Hurts did get a lot of buzz that week. People did like what they saw throwing, but I still think the preconceived notions about him as a passer continue to linger on past what we saw here, which is why maybe it took a little while for him to get under center. But we've seen what happens. 3 years ago, Jalen Hurts was where we are now in this town. Now he's on his way to the Super Bowl. So there is some talent at quarterback that maybe we don't see. But what did you see today?
So, I mean, last year's class for quarterbacks we kind of thought somebody was like maybe one or two of them were going to leak into the first round of the draft. I mean, we had Kenny Pickett here, we had Malik Willis here, we had like a lot of people down here that we were thought like Sam Howell, a lot of guys that we thought could sneak up into the first round. And then there was like Bailey Zappi here too, who was just here to kind of see if he was going to get drafted or not. Like that made more sense. This year, there is no mistake about it. They're not going to go in the first round. They're probably the second round seems like that could be the ceiling for some of these guys. I think honestly, the best quarterback down here, Hendon Hooker, can't even play this week because he's injured and he, tore his ACL back in October or November and he's here in, his body is here and he is able to talk to the media and to the teams that are down here, but he is unable to actually perform. So as far as the other guys go from this class, Jake Haener today looked horrible. It was a really bad start to the week. And you could see the frustration on some of the wide receivers' faces with just the throws not being completed and like just the snaps being bobbled from the center to him to like that kind of connection. And, these guys have never played before, so you do have to kind of give them benefit of the doubt. But Jaron Hall in comparison looked just fine. And Jaron Hall looked great out there. I would not say that he's, a lot of people said I put him too low in my quarterback rankings. I think he's right about where he needs to be. He's about the 6th or 7th best quarterback, maybe 8th in this class. And that's kind of where I think he's going to stay. I definitely think Jake Haener is going from probably 6th, 7th round out of the draft if he continues on this path that he's on now. But just the national team quarterbacks were bad. Malik Cunningham, who is supposed to be here this week and did get the weigh-in, is unfortunately ill, so he was unable to participate in the events today. He was back at his hotel. But I think just him not being there, Jake Haener being bad, Jaron Hall looking good but not great. Like it's just these are dangerous things for this group because the wide receivers and tight ends they're reliant on the quarterbacks to be good. And if Jake Haener is going to be bad this whole week, it could be a long week for some of these guys in the receiving corps.
That's a great point. The quarterback position is the engine. We talked about this on the ride down here. I was, of course, going to bat for my dude, Kirk Cousins, and I was just pointing to all the players that we as fantasy football people have relied on in the past and won championships on the past, whose engine was Kirk Cousins, Jamison Crowder, Chris Thompson, Matt Kelly. The quarterback does make a difference. So like you said, I think it's going to be interesting this week to watch how if the chemistry does build with the group, from day 1 to day 2. Be interested to watch that tomorrow. Haener, like you said, I don't watch a lot of college football, but he didn't look, you're not lying. He didn't look great today. There was a lot of incompletions that he was throwing, a lot of overthrows, a lot of just bad throws in general. And he had every opportunity. They gave him plenty of throws too to make some good ones. And by contrast, like you said, Hall looked pretty crisp out there, and he took some shots early. So will be interesting to see how that goes. We did get some interviews with some players as well. Those are up. Those will go up on the Shorts feed and on the YouTube or on the TikTok. And we'll try to maybe patch some into the podcast for y'all listening. But we have that stuff, and we'll post it somewhere. So be on the lookout for that. Any final thoughts on this group here before we talk about the wide receivers, tight ends, and then the defensive players that we saw on the national team and then move to the American team?
Yeah, I will say that on the defensive side, there wasn't a whole. Isaiah Foskey looked good, but we didn't really get to see a lot of their reps. As far as the DB group goes, it was a fine group, but not necessarily anyone that stood out. I would say the one that stood out the most was JL Skinner from Boise State, just because he's 6'4". He's 6'4", 211, which is a crazy sized human. He was super skinny out there. He's really going to have to bulk up if he's going to be out there and involved. You had mentioned that Kayvon Merriweather kind of gave you Kyle Duggar vibes, which I can't say I disagree with that. That was probably honestly a decent comp for him. But I would like to get more into the defense as we go along. But then as far as, I guess the last thing is the wide receivers, Trey Palmer looks really good, and I really want to see more from Trey Palmer this week. It's just if the quarterbacks are going to hold all these guys back, it kind of sucks. but he looked really good. And then Reed from Michigan State, wide receiver, he was the fastest player on the first team or for the first practice today. He went at 20 miles per hour, which is what they clocked him at with the zebra technology that they're pushing down here this week. And yeah, exactly. And so I'm sure that's going to boost him up somebody's board, because when you get a speedy wide receiver, they just fall over themselves thinking he needs to be on their team. Surprised he won't be a first round pick by the end of this.
Yeah, we didn't focus too much on the defense with this group. We did talk to Foskey and we did watch him. He had some good reps. We did get some good D-line video, but tomorrow we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into these guys. We'll probably split up maybe half and half, watch the different drills. Maybe I'll do offense on this American team, and then the next day we'll do switch over or something. But we're gonna do this every night or every afternoon after we do the practices. These aren't gonna be super long. We've been going 10 minutes. We're gonna recap the American team as well. Take any questions that y'all have in the comments out here. We would love to, or any comments on or any players you want us to look at or maybe watch. We would love to hear your input and feedback on that. But we're gonna do these every night, like I said, tonight, tomorrow night, and I guess we'll do one Thursday night. Give you guys a recap of what we're seeing and kind of the conversations too that we're hearing here in Mobile from the other coaches or from coaches, from scouts, from other fantasy people. There's a lot of interesting organizations here, a lot of interesting people, teams to data people to fantasy people to everything in between. So, any final thoughts before we move to the American team?
I just don't want it to be missed how important Roschon Johnson was in this first group. I mean, he is the most NFL ready player, and I think either on offense and defense in this first group. I mean, Isaiah Foskey definitely looks the part and definitely was good, but I think Roschon is going to be the one come fantasy football time that matters the most.
Word. All right, you heard your. Oh, sorry, I was muted. Let's move on down this group to the American team. We have the wide receivers. We did have quite a few wide receivers in this group that we liked. Um, they kind of stole the show, and that's really the truth. They had better quarterback play, though. So let's just go ahead and start there. You have Tank Dell here in your notes. Princeton's Andre Isovias. Maybe that's the right name. Rashee Rice. What did you see that you liked? We just put up a short. We talked to Mingo, Jonathan Mingo. He had a nice day, had a couple of good catches, was very good in and out of his cuts and breaks from what we saw. But go ahead, talk about the wide receivers, and then we'll talk about. We did get to see this group go up against each other in some one-on-ones with the defensive backs and the wide receivers, which we didn't get to see in the first group. So we got a little bit better look overall at this group, I thought, as well. But what are your thoughts, Billy?
I mean, obviously, this wide receiver group was this was the most exciting group to come into this to see. Honestly, when they put out the roster and they showed that Mingo, Rice, Dell were all going to be on this team, I would this was the one I was kind of gravitating towards the most. And honestly, it didn't disappoint. But the one that stole the show today was the Andre Ivis. Iovius guy from Princeton, who, I mean, he made a drop early, which kind of got a lot of people looking around, does he belong out here? But then after that, he was the one that made the most spectacular catches the entire day. I mean, he was making, one-handed grabs in the end zone, able to get both feet down. He was just able to beat his assignment for defensive backs and able to catch the ball. He was the most impressive person out there as far as how he was catching the ball. And maybe he was making it look hard, I don't know, but it looked great on to us. The other wide receivers, they kind of looked exactly how I had hoped. Rashee Rice is a little bit shorter than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to measure at about 6'2", and he was only 6 foot according to the Senior Bowl account, which is he's still good, guys. He's not bad. He's just not as big as we had hoped. Honestly, this might slide him down some people's draft boards, which might make it better for your fantasy situation. And then Tank Dell, who led the led the country in receiving yards and in receiving touchdowns in college football. Was just simply amazing out there today. I mean, his ability to his speed and his ability to just leave receivers in the dust. I mean, he cooked this one poor defensive back twice on the 2 reps that he played against him. It was South Carolina. The last name's Rush. He was just got burnt both times, and it was just kind of sad to see because he's going to be thinking about Tank Dell tonight, and Tank Dell definitely led the part. Him being 5'8" does seem like it's going to be an issue for some people, but it's not a matter of how tall he is; it's a matter of how good he is. And I think even though he's kind of small, I think this could be another Wan'Dale Robinson type of situation where a team could take him in that role. And then I just quickly want to mention Jonathan Mingo. His size was really good. I mean, I think he was like 6'1", 220, which is incredible size. And we talked to Jonathan Mingo, and he said that he's going to model his game after the old old Miss wide receivers of the past, like DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, which is like exactly what you want to hear from him. And I think when he gets the NFL, he's the exact same size as those guys. So why can't he be as good? That's the thought process there,
Love it, love it, love it. It was a good time today talking to those guys. A lot of really interesting, like you said, that one fella whose name I'm not going to say again, he did early on. It was like, yeah, what's going on with this guy? And then he just took over. So I like this group a lot more. Defensive backs, I saw a few guys out there like that were getting cooked, but I saw a few guys that were, glued to some of these receivers pretty heavy in those one-on-one drills they were doing. They weren't throwing the ball during those, but there were some guys that were definitely not letting any separation happen. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on those guys, try and identify maybe some good safeties down here. Take a deep dive and have some more conversations with the scouts, the managers, the other personnel people that are down here. We're going to go out here in a little bit and have some food and drinks and do the whole, Mobile, Alabama thing. But yeah, my final thoughts on this group are really that this was the better overall group. I thought that their drills looked better. The players looked like they were a little bit sharper, but we'll see. That first group, they were the very first ones, like the jitters. Maybe there's something to that. The very first people hit the field. Whatever it may be. I'm interested to see if this holds true all week. That the American team is the team to keep an eye on, or if the national team can maybe push up a little bit. I really did like the tight ends as well. I mean, it's easy to look good when you're a tight end and you're playing against defensive backs who maybe won't make it in the NFL, just in general. But some of these tight ends here looked like they were some pretty husky, mean, lean, killing machine type fellas. So be keeping an eye on them as well. Defensively, we wanted to talk to McDonald. What was his name again? Will? Yeah. We were going to try to talk to Will McDonald. We're going to keep an eye on him later this rest of the week. He's one of the players we are watching. We did talk to Foskey. Like I said, we'll have that interview up eventually. Talk to some of these guys more tomorrow. And this should be a fun process for us to go through with you all. Any questions from anybody that is watching the live stream or anybody that watches this between now and tomorrow when we post? Go ahead and drop in the comments below what players you want us to keep an eye on. Any things in particular. Looks like we got a question here. Any thoughts on Keanu Benton? All right, Billy, what did you see from Keanu Benton today?
He's a part of the D tackle group. Didn't really get to he was a part of the D tackle group, and we didn't really get to see much of their practice today since it was at the opposite side of the field. He is one that I'm looking forward to diving more into as we go through the process because I like his profile, and it's just tough to get down there to see all of them today. I mean, we didn't even get to see Andre Carter for all that much. Which was one of the most exciting players coming into this class for me. Didn't really get to see Will McDonald at full strength either. We just got to see him in some of the later on drills when they were having both teams playing at the same time. So defense tomorrow for this group will be probably the one we deep dive, even though the most heads were turning for the wide receiver class, which another thing we need to throw out there before we move on from wide receivers even is that all of the coaches and all the scouts were moving to Rashee Rice. Like they have honed in on watching this kid this week. So I think if Rashee Rice has a good week this week, I would say today it wasn't super great day for Rashee Rice, but it wasn't bad either. I think it was just kind of in the middle. But he has definitely got the eyes and ears and everything else of all of the scouts and coaches that are here looking for wide receivers. We both, everyone in the stands kind of noticed that the Chicago Bears scouts and coaches were kind of keeping an extra eye on him, which could mean some good things for the Bears when he comes available, with their picks in the future. But just to move on from this, I just want to talk about what was probably one of my favorite players of the day was Julius Brents from Kansas State. He's a defensive back. I think he's going to try to play cornerback, but I definitely could see him moving to safety. But he was the best coverage defensive back out there today. I mean, it wasn't even close. Everybody else, it was kind of like you win some, you lose some. Julius Brents did not lose anything today. There was not a receiver, and he was going up against the best ones. And he was not losing those reps. He was turning them inside, not letting him get outside. Anytime they blew past him, he was with them step for step. I was impressed with him during the season, just kind of watching him from afar, but actually seeing him play and seeing his passion. I mean, when he had an interception that ended up was going to get flagged, which I'd argue maybe wasn't a flag, but he had one interception today that he got flagged for that he just like threw the ball. He was just like, so excited for it. And just like that guy seems like he is the kind of energetic person that you want on your team. And I like that he has my attention. I definitely added him to our list of people to interview this week because I don't know, just really falling for that guy a little bit. I think he's definitely got the goods,
Amen, brother. All right. Well, like I said, this is not going to be very long. This is basically going to be a dump of some notes and just some comments quickly. Every night after we go to both practices, we are down here at the Senior Bowl. We'll be here for all three practices. Like I said in the comments, if there's any players you want us to keep an eye on, if you have any questions about what's going on down here, just give us a what's up. Throw us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And we will be back tomorrow. And like I said, be sure to look for all of our short form content as well. Follow the Twitter, follow the TikTok, all that good stuff. We'll be putting this up on the podcast feed as well. So everybody should get some of this Mobile, Alabama Reese's Senior Bowl goodness. And that's it for me. Any final words at all, Billy?
No, I would just I guess the only final thing I'd have is like what Nagy said when we got here at the beginning press conference that there's going to be potentially 4 tight ends in the first round. That's not going to happen. There may be 2. I could probably hear him out on 2, but to hear that there might be 4 seems crazy to me. But then again, maybe he's ahead of the curve. Maybe he's way ahead of us in that department because I only saw 1, and that being Michael Mayer. 2, I think Musgrave could potentially get up there, but 4 seems impossible. But I guess we'll see.
All right. Sounds like Jim Nagy is a dynasty head. He's scouting those deep tight ends. He's buying into the hype. He's creating the hype. Go Jim Nagy and your little rinky-dink, your upstart Twitter account. That was a funny mic drop today too. But all right, support the channel. Throw us a thumbs up. Throw us a super chat. Get in the Ultimate IDP Index. Get in the Ultimate Dynasty Index. Get into the rookie rankings. We love you, IDP Army. We love you, every fantasy football fan out there, and we hope to see you back soon.
Looking for the ultimate edge in fantasy football? The Ultimate Fantasy Index is finally here. The Ultimate Fantasy Index features the Ultimate Dynasty Index, the Ultimate IDP Index, and the Ultimate Best Ball Index. Each index features tiered rankings that are updated daily, which means you'll have a clear understanding of not only who the top players are, but also who the next best options are. More fun, more football, more fantasy for the culture. Join the IDP Army and start winning your leagues today.